Hello and welcome to I say this every time, but yet another episode of Constructing Success. I am your host, Derek Baer, and with me I have Jason Saunders from Indoor Environmental Services. Jason has a colorful past colorful in the best way, a colorful past that has taken him from being a field service, let me pull this up correctly. I don't want to screw anything up. A field service technician, and he has changed from that role to director of customer service. Then he's going to be a service operations manager. He then pulled away from IES for a brief stint with MCOR and is now, and this is what's cool for me, is he's now the president of IES, which puts him as the youngest president in all of the service logic organizations throughout the country. And I think there's just over 60. When I met Jason, he was the GM at IES. So I've watched him come into the throne at this role. It's been exciting and it's been fun. I've gotten to work alongside him for part of this, but I'm really excited to have him on the show today and to uncover, construct, deconstruct, however you want to look at it, what makes him successful and what he has used in his life, whether it is mentors, support, family, books, whatever, we'll unpack it, but to overcome the obstacles that are thrown at all of us each day, because we all have our shit and we all have our issues, but not all of us keep fighting back. So without further ado, Jason, welcome to the show. It's good to see you.
Thank you for having me, Derek. I appreciate it. Was excited and glad to have the opportunity to chat with you because you and I are quite similar, and at the end of the day, have managed to navigate through our respective trades quite well. So happy to share my story, and hopefully our content today helps out any and all that are looking for help. So
I have no doubt that our content today will help at least one person out there, and that is the goal. It probably will help more, but at least one. And so for a little bit of background, this is an exciting way for me to see Jason. Normally we have backgrounds on. I'm not sure. Well, most of you will be just listening, but normally we have backgrounds on. Now this is a little bit more of a coffee shop or bar scenario where we're more so sitting across the table and get to shoot the shit. And coming into the working relationship with Jason, pretty early on, I was able to figure out that we were like-minded, which if you know me, that's an exciting thing because if someone's like-minded with me, they're willing to do or try almost anything. And as we were working through tactics, and this is going back, this is not an important part of the story, but it was a sales consulting related project. And watching Jason implement the tools, absorb the material, and just accelerate to the highest of peaks as a sales leader and as a leader in general, that was fulfilling for me. And over the last, what do you think it's been? It's over 2 years now, right?
a couple years, yeah, time flies.
Yeah. So,
yeah, especially having success. So
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, no, of course, I'm glad that it worked out. But over the 2 years, I've gotten to know him more and more well, doing it via Zoom, aside from an in-person meeting. It can be difficult. Well, here's my first rant. So it can be difficult in a world where we're just on Zoom meetings because it's all business. We come in, we talk, and then when the meeting's over, I don't have the opportunity to walk out of the meeting next to Jason and say, like, did you hear that bullshit? Or, man, that's really exciting. Or, what did you do this weekend? Or, what are you up to this weekend? But fortunately, we've been able to lower that guard and get a bit more personal. So if you're okay with it, Jason, I'd like to work backwards. This seems to work the best. I've got a few topics that I want to talk about as far as performance hacks and work hacks and things to make your life better. But I want everyone to get to know who you are. And it's a similar theme. I'll bring someone on with tremendous accolades, and we see you with the tremendous accolades, but it's hard to put together the story where maybe things weren't always so smooth. So if we could go back, I think as much as you feel comfortable sharing, you weren't always so polished. And if you can't see him, button down shirt, tall, good dude, great haircut, put together, leads one of the strongest sales organizations and companies I know of. But Jason, tell me a little bit about some of the troubles or knucklehead things you were involved in that, because this has happened for me, that if someone that knew you in middle school or in middle school, early high school would say, there's no way that's the same Jason. And then going from there, how sports maybe got you a little bit more in line and what that helped to provide work ethic, grit, and I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Man, my story. Grew up in Northern California in the Bay Area. Was underwhelmed by public education and excelled at sports and arts and trade-related schooling, etc. So I was fortunate to be raised in and around the trades. My father was in construction my whole life, and so it was always a DIY, man. I think I was hanging cabinets with him at 12 years old, and
did you like that?
You know what? I did. I always kind of how things are constructed, made, how they work. I think I got in trouble probably at 10 years old for taking apart the lawnmower. I was really good at taking things apart at a young age. Not so good at putting them back
together. I was going to ask, yeah.
So it was I was fortunate to have that type of influence, but definitely was interested in how things worked. And so got out of high school, went to work pretty quick, hands-on type jobs. Was out of the house early, went into construction trades more or less, and it was just making decisions that were not probably the best for my long-term success. And had the people that were important to me in life approaching me, expressing their concerns and what's your plan? College. I don't believe college is for everybody. And I was presented with some options and had some mentors kind of steer me to a trade school background, being that's what I excelled in and had satisfaction in. So
I'm gonna pause you real quick because I would be doing a shitty job as a listener and as a host if I didn't pause and unpack a little bit more. So me using my own experience, and maybe this is a temperature thing, being that you grew up in the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. So when your dad had you helping with hands-on stuff, you did enjoy tinkering around?
Yeah.
Okay. I fucking hated it. I'm getting better about it. But I don't, in high school, even like late middle school, I was forced, and not forced like in a horrible abusive way, but anything that I wanted. So I'm going to give a two-part explanation of this. I am grateful. And if you can hear, I don't know if you can hear this, but there's kind of like a noise. I've got a window, I've got a guy hanging 8 stories above the ground, wiping off. So disregard that background noise. But anything that I wanted to have as a toy, as a car, and I'm saying toys like a stand-up jet ski, a go-kart, and I'm appreciative of this for the mindset, but we didn't have a lot of money. And I grew up in a really, really wealthy area. Actually, what part of the Bay were you in?
Antioch, East Bay.
Okay, East Bay. My dad grew up in Danville. I don't know if we talked about that. Yeah. Okay.
About 45 minutes apart from each other for sure.
Okay. So he would have me doing these things, and where I think that as a whole, it was a win. As a whole, he did it to the best that he could. But as far as setting expectations, it would be something like, okay, if you want this scooter with a weed whacker engine on it, like we'll get it on. I don't even know that Craigslist was necessarily around at that time. It might have been eBay, but we're going to buy a broken one because we can't afford one that works. And we're going to spend about 3 hours fixing it up, getting it right. So this is where theory and execution can really do you a disservice. So 3 hours to a 14-year-old, that's actually kind of a long time regardless, especially when it's something that you don't like doing, especially when it's something that you aren't good at doing. You know, I'm like sitting there, I'm like, you could turn this wrench in 2 seconds. I'm going to spend 2 minutes trying to get the socket on. You know, like, come on. So there also, it was cold and gray and wet at all times. So I'm fucking around with this fucking around with this scooter, and I'm looking at him, and for him, it's like for him, he's happy that I'm doing it. For me, it's the biggest waste of time. And the 3 hours was never 3 hours. This is where I've got a good rule of thumb of times it by 3. A 3-hour project with most people, and my dad included, is a 9-hour project. And it could be 9 hours until we figure out what's really wrong. And so this is my unload on the topic, but I'm appreciative of the difficulty and when I'm saying being comfortable, being uncomfortable, doing things that I really didn't want to do at a young age. And I think that did build my work ethic muscle of like, all right, well, I got to get this done. I'm going to do it. But that's my rant. How did you take to these activities? Like, was this awesome, I want to jump in, or is it something you had to build a muscle for?
Probably a mix with both. I think the older I get and the more, longer I've been in the trades myself, I think I appreciate it more because I understood the intent, right, was to build skill set, responsibility, and give me some skills that I could use throughout my life, whether I chose the trades or not. Similarly to you, the weed whacker motor on the whatever, right? Go-peds. I'm guessing it's
Go-ped. It was a go-ped, a Bigfoot.
Yeah, so I wanted a go-ped more than anything in my life. And I had a couple buddies that had them, right? I wanted them and asked for years on end, whether it be, I don't know, some graduation report card, accolade that I should have got for a go-ped.
Any opportunity.
Yeah, and it never happened, right? So, I got told, we lived fairly comfortably, but, something like a go-ped, that just didn't happen, right? So, hey, go get a job, and so I think I would have probably been 11 or 12 years old. I got a paper route, it had to wake up at 5 a.m. This is back in the days when the neighborhood kid was the paper boy. I had a route that took me about an hour and a half, 2 hours every morning. I had to go collect payment and then pay, I guess, my route manager the total owed, and whatever was left over was my profit, right? And I had folks and neighbors that didn't pay for months. And so I learned quickly at 12, 13 years old, account receivable, sales, operations, whatever you want to call it. But that was what funded the GoPed fund, right? Which I never ultimately got the GoPed. I think I bought my first vehicle when I was 13, 14. And similarly, hey, we'll help you buy a car and we'll help you fix it up. But you're going to be doing the work, right? This isn't go buy a new Chevrolet Silverado off the showroom floor. So,
right.
I think from a very young age, my mom and dad both instilled some work ethic in me, and if you want it, it's there for the taking, but you got to go get it. And so I'm very appreciative for that in hindsight.
Yeah, so it's funny that I've never thought about this. Like, this is why conversations like this are so eye-opening to me, and sometimes most of the time they help me to recognize how cavemanish I can be in my thinking, because there's times where I think outside of the box, and I don't know why this just clicked for me, but just to give an example, because everyone's different. And had I had the option of, you can turn the wrench on this broken one and fix it, or you can go get a job and pay someone else to do it, I might have been more interested in the paying. Or I would have had a greater appreciation for how quick money can go when you're paying someone else to do it. Either way, and if my dad ends up listening to this, I couldn't be more grateful for the work ethic. It just the temperature, the wet, the dark, it wasn't for me. So moving from there, so you had the work ethic, and you mentioned that you were doing hands-on jobs. What are some of the jobs that you had in high school? You said construction a little bit.
Yeah, I worked at a tire shop, doing install rims, tires, all that good stuff. America Tire Co.
Mhm.
I actually still talk to one of the guys that I worked with back then. Great entry level job. Teach us some responsibility to take good care of their people, and had a good time. I worked for a framing company, just kind of the gopher on the job site to dig a ditch, go run, get a tool, help stand the wall, whatever it was. Just kind of low man on the totem pole, right? I was
Mhm.
there to listen and not be heard.
Mhm.
That was pretty clear pretty quickly. So, um, any and everything, odd jobs. I mean, I worked on some vineyards, running this, that, and the other odd jobs, orchards. So, any way to make a buck, man.
Mhm.
A lot of family, friends, that type of stuff. But looking back on them, definitely appreciative for the opportunity to make some cash.
Absolutely. Well, the opportunity, and I'm sure there was some bonehead moments, if you will, where you made mistakes. But as we are seeing, like as we see on a daily basis, um, looking back, or if I'm going to put myself in the younger Derek's shoes, or if you were to do that for the younger Jason, it kind of seemed like, wow, I'm so lucky that I'm getting this opportunity. I'm so lucky that I still have this job now. So I just turned 36. So being 36 and looking back on who I was then compared to someone that is older or more experienced, but just doesn't show up or doesn't care or is hard to work with. Oh, dude, like every opportunity that we had that we maintained was because we just showed up. And that is this incredible, I don't know if it's if it's like an epidemic. I don't know if it's getting worse with age, but it just seems like the maybe it's because of social media, maybe it's because the internet has made the world so small and you see all these opportunities out there, but it's so easy for someone to say, yeah, I went there for a week or two, it sucked, I'm
Yeah.
just going to get something else, or I'm just going to I was making more money on my allowance than even working, it was stupid.
Yeah.
So that's been, I don't know if you see that with employees coming in and out,
Yeah.
um, but just work ethic and grit, it's just not there.
Yeah, I think, I probably learned a lot about work ethic, grit in sports. I was played baseball, football, was pretty good at baseball, pretty bad at football. But I found that yeah, when it comes to physical, high level physical, sports, you don't just show up for the game, right? It
Mm-hmm.
takes a lot of investment, free time, and details matter, right? And the smallest of details can eventually pay off for you. So, those again, was fortunate to have been involved in pretty high level sports at a young age, and uh, not everyone's willing to run the drill as hard as they can every time, and
Mm-hmm.
to kind of your point, there is a shortage of qualified tradespeople and workers in the workforce right now, and we have plenty of opportunity to hire people, and at times, if they fit our culture and are willing to put the work in, they flourish, and the skies are the limit. If they're just here to kind of punch the clock mentality in and out, that can be troublesome, because sometimes it does take more than just 8 to 5 to take care of the customer, take care of your internal customers, your teammates, and succeed, right, and grow the business. So yeah, absolutely. Hard work. You've heard me rant with some of my sales personnel and teams, is that you know I want to do any and everything I can to empower you to succeed. I don't get to make you succeed. You have to do the work. You have to make the phone call, get the appointment, get the proposal together in a timely fashion, meet the customer's deadline. I wish I could do all that for you. I can't. I won't. And so it's up to the individuals, and not every individual is um, equal,
Mm-hmm.
right? From a sense of how much effort they put in. They could be successful with varying degrees of effort, but my default personally has always been as much effort as I can give. Hopefully that makes up for my other shortcomings that I may have. So
Mhm. When effort, it's always, even if you just using effort, that word as an example, you could have the most talented person come in. If you want to look at it, I mean, we see this all the time with sports. And then if you look at a superstar that isn't, they're putting in minimal effort. Occasionally they have an explosion moment, or you've got an amazing closer, but they're not putting in the work as far as new business development, whatever that is. I will take the person who needs to work on their skills, but is willing to put in the work every day, over the diva, over the maverick, over the this is how I do it, take it or leave it. I'm going to show up when I want to show up. And that seems to be, I don't know if that's inflated, because now I'm starting to sound old, but I don't know if that's getting inflated because we have so much access to, Twitter, and we're seeing players fire off their emotions, and we're seeing players do crazy shit because they feel like it. And then because they're doing it and they're on this pedestal, it makes it more okay for us to do. But yeah, without taking off, effort, work ethic, grit, there's just no substitute for that. Sorry, go for it.
No, it's all right. I have a saying I coined or stole. It's been in my vocabulary for a long time, so I couldn't quote it if I did take it. But I'm a big fan of hire the attitude with aptitude. Mm-hmm. Right? The superstar, top notch person on the team is great, but if the attitude isn't in alignment with the team's culture, it's not a good fit, right? So, I've seen success. I've seen, many of people throughout my career flourish that, didn't have the skill sets needed for a role, but had a can do, will do, want to do attitude. And that overcame any and all shortcomings in the short term of skills that they were lacking. And so, we're big. I currently am big on that mantra. Again, qualified workforce is tough to come by. So, I want to find the attitude that's looking for an opportunity, wants to grow, is willing to invest in themselves to flourish, right? So, I think that that kind of curtails well to what you're saying, is that there's a lack of that. But when I see it, I get excited, right? That's become a rare candidate in today's job market, which is unfortunate.
It is unfortunate, and when I will figure it out. But when I figure out the secret ingredient as to why this keeps happening more and more, the secret negative ingredient, then I'll be so rich when I come up with a solution. But I've yet to figure it out.
Well, it's mind blowing, right? You've been part of IES's team, helping us out for the last couple of years. And I mean, we have job postings that have been posted, we'll say for a year, entry level, $100,000 income potential, with no cap. They could earn upwards of $200,000 a year. We'll get 50 applicants in a week. 25 of the applicants won't even respond to the initial, hey, let's get something on the books and schedule. Right? Of the 50% we do schedule, they don't even show up for the interview. The half that show up for the interview are not prepared, right? And it's mind blowing to me, because I look back and think of when I was 18, 19, 20, early 20 years old, I would have cut my foot off for $100,000 job.
Oh my God.
Right. I mean,
my God.
And so it is, to your point, I wish I knew the secret to that success and that mentality. We're always trying to evolve and adapt and be someone whom, people want to come work. And I understand that there's opportunity everywhere. But, again, it's just really humbling for myself to look at the sheer volume of applicants that actually can come in and would be someone I'm interested in hiring. So
I don't know how you feel about this, but I have a long ways to go on my journey, but you always hear it's lonely at the top. And I thought, okay, whatever, or okay, just because there's so few that are at the top. Well, what I'm starting to uncover is it gets lonelier the higher you go, because people just don't give a shit. And it's actually like the secret here is if you just keep going, your competition actually significantly decreases. Like
Yeah.
if you just show up, you're ahead of 90% of the people out there.
Mm.
And had I known that at a young age, I don't know where I'd be. Like I overthought so many things. It's like just show up and do not the minimum, but just do your best, and people pay attention and will elevate you for that.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, I've been definitely fortunate in my career to kind of just be present when opportunities presented themselves, whether someone quit, got let go, chose to leave, started their own company, whatever that was. And just me be willing to show up and, hey, I know so-and-so's not here any longer. How can I help? Are there pieces I can pick up, phone calls I can make, whatever that may be, has really afforded me a lot of opportunity throughout my career. So again, consistency, I think, show up, be ready to work consistently. And, am I waking up every morning and max effort at 10 out of 10? No, that's no one's built that way. But I am aware when I'm not at a 10. And at least when presented the opportunity, sometimes you got to kind of look at yourself, say, okay, I'm drained, I'm tired, my dog died, whatever that was, and today's the day, got to step up. So, effort is key for sure.
Effort is key. And so so I want to earmark the trades because I want to go deeper on that. But what you just said is I'm seeing more and more of it, maybe because it's on my mind or maybe some algorithms or whatever, but I continue to hear discipline is more important than motivation. And I thought the opposite for so long. And what you just said is, yeah, your dog died, you're going through a breakup, you don't feel well, whatever the issue is that we all face. No one is special. No one is that unique. Like, sure, there could be a one-off where it's like, oh, damn, yeah, you need to take some time. But this is the huge exception to the rule. And discipline, just showing up, like that is the ticket. And if you show up and I want to be careful here. I'm not saying that if you've got something that really has you down and you know that it's going to take 3 or 4 days to get over it or whatever, there's a period of time, go ahead and take that and then come back and be better. But other than that, your boss, if you've got a good relationship with your manager, or if you've got a good relationship with your founder or president, and vice versa, if they have that with you, it should be a situation where you can say, hey, I'm coming in. I've got this under control, but here's what's going on in my life. If something seems a little bit off, and if that manager supports you and cares about you, they're going to take care of things and help you where it needs to be. But just to this ever flowing and wavering, like, I'm not feeling like it today. I'm not motivated by this anymore. I wanted to be a chef and I'm not digging it anymore. Whatever. Everything is going to have its honeymoon phase and everything is going to be not so bright and shiny at some day. And you just got to keep fucking pushing. You got to keep pushing.
No, you do. And I think, I have once again been fortunate throughout the various roles and companies I've worked at to have some leadership that genuinely had interest in their workforce. And you could have a bad day or you could be having a moment in life where you're not at your best. And you could approach your boss at that time and say, hey man, I'm going through some stuff, not on my A game. I'm giving it the best I can. And just be advised. Right. And I found that if you are 9 out of 10 days putting in the most effort, taking the service call late at night, or going out to the customer's job site that was upset and willing to work and be open to growing and learning and being challenged, that when you do ask for some grace, it's usually very easily afforded to you, as opposed to a bad attitude, not willing, lazy, whatever you want to call it, right? Now it's just another day, another excuse, right? And it becomes, kind of your crying wolf. It's like, well, Friday again, having a bad day, got to leave. Okay, got it. Well, it's every Friday and every Monday, right?
Right.
There becomes a trend,
right?
And so, I found that level of communication is pretty common, honestly. And in the managers I look at that I've had that I've really appreciated, it was an open door. you could go to them and not only talk about business but life, right? And not only
Hmm.
could you talk about it, they usually inquire, hey, how's things going? Hey,
Right.
you look tired. Hey, you look like shit. Is everything okay? I mean, right?
Hmm.
I mean, well, you know me well. I haven't slept in 3 days. I'm stressed out and whatever it is. So, and it's appreciated, honestly,
Yes.
that you could have that conversation. So,
Yes, it is absolutely appreciated. I can think of a very specific scenario where being in the workforce and having something off in your life is a little bit easier to mask. Well, there's a slight caveat. I think it's a little bit easier to mask when you're in the field and you can kind of be in and out of the office briefly versus when you're on Zoom like this or you're on a
yeah,
camera and they can see right in your face.
yeah,
And I can think of a scenario, and like you said, I really appreciated it. I was coming back from a trip and there was a delayed flight, and it was a really fun trip. And I remember I remember my CEO saying, because I get up early because it's East Coast time, but I remember saying, hey, if it's okay with you guys, like my flight got in really late, I'm going to go back to sleep for a few hours. And he looked me dead, and I didn't really know him that well at this point. This is one of those transparency kind of
yeah,
give and take trust situations. And he looks at me and he goes, a few hours? Why don't you go back to bed for a few days? And I was like, oh shit. But it let me know that he recognized, like, it's not
yeah,
like he's just going through the motions. He recognized what I needed. He was okay with it, but I also didn't ever want to put myself in that situation again. So that changed some of my behaviors a bit, because I mean, it's one thing to show up that way, and I don't know if anyone else would feel this way. But when you throw on the camera and the first thing you see is your face, and if you look
yeah,
off, you're like, oh fuck,
yeah,
this is going to be a rough one. So yeah, so all very important things. And you mentioned the trades, and I think that it's definitely a workforce. It's definitely an option that is not talked about enough. And I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, there hasn't been a good plan to backfill the workforce that is exiting, and there's a huge opportunity if you want to jump in. If you
yeah.
could talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we got a lot of the guys that have been in the trade for 30, 40 years are retiring out. COVID was a big influencer on that, where they had opportunities to retire during some turbulent times, and had chosen to retire, and they've worked their whole life to earn that. But yeah, I mean, we are in need of mechanical trades, whether that's sheet metal, pipe fitting, plumbing, heating, air conditioning, you name it. But there's a shortage, and it's mind blowing to me. I know I touched on earning potential and income in some of our internal office type positions, but we're some of the highest paid trades in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Actually, the guys just got a raise back July, so last month. They give you annual raise. Apprentices get multiple raises throughout the year, but we hire throughout Northern California, some of which are the highest paid pipe trades in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So in our North Bay area, we'll say San Francisco, North Bay, journeymen are making 85, $90 an hour. I actually had to look at it, individual's paycheck. One of my field leaders are $104 an hour on the check.
Damn.
Take
Damn.
home gas card, truck. We pay for schooling for a 5-year apprenticeship. There's no debt, no college. Uniforms, tools are paid for, etc. Right? And again, we have a hard time finding people interested in apprenticeship, whom truly want to make a career out of this. So, there's a ton of potential in the trades. On any of our construction type projects, our electrician partners have the same complaints. Your roofers, we're 3 months out,
Mm-hmm.
backlog, same complaints. So, yeah, there is a lot of opportunity out there to be had, whether it's in the trades or sales, whatever avenues are out there. And it's we don't have a ton of interest, I think, or a desire to do the hard work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that would lead to long-term, financial success and health of an individual. But
What goes into an apprenticeship? So you said it's five years. What is that? How does that plan work out? What does that look like?
yeah, it's you'll usually get a contractor to sponsor you or be willing to say, hey, we think this candidate's ready for apprenticeship. They go to school more or less nine months a year, 3 hours a night for 2 nights a week. It's not paid. So there's some long days, right? You get up, you go to work, you do your 8 hours, and then you go to school, 3 hours a night, and then you have summers off. Right now, the team's out of school during summer, and we're slam busy. It's 106 degrees today, so
I'm sure you are very, very, very busy this time of year.
yeah, we're very busy. Good busy though, right? You're always busy doing something. This time of year is a good busy. Guys are getting their hours, and guys and gals are getting their hours, and customers are getting taken care of. So, yeah, it's definitely the busy season. I always say if it's nice enough outside where you don't need to run your AC, you want to be outside, you want to go to play softball, cornhole, have a barbecue. It's great for the personal life, bad for the HVAC business, right? If it's so hot you want to hide out. Do nothing,
Yeah.
or so cold where you're freezing and want to go inside, that we're usually pretty busy.
So there's multiple routes that you can go if you do get into the trades, and we'll talk about HVAC specifically. You can go I'm going to ask you to give me the options, but you can go the technician side, you can go the sales side. What are the other avenues that are available?
Yeah, it's I would say this, and we may digress back to kind of some of my story, because I had some really good insight from one of my managers. But we have guys that are career field installers or service techs. That's what they have passion for. They enjoy it. That's what they like. And it's common eventually for them to go into some type of leadership or management role, a foreman, superintendent role. Sometimes they'll go into a sales role from the field. They may go into operations support, project manager type roles, superintendent, where they start to manage divisions, etc. Or oftentimes too, they'll leave, quote unquote, the trade. They'll go to a stationary role where they're tasked with taking care of a group of buildings full time for a property management company, the state, the county, the utility department, whatever that is. And so it's kind of, it's a very interesting, I think, subset or market in the trades, is that you could go from swinging a hammer eventually into sales if that's what interests you, or into leadership or management, or even self-employment. I have several peers that have worked for IES or competition that 10, 15 years in, feel comfortable, confident enough to go out and start their own business, and are entrepreneurial in spirit. And I commend them for that. If that's what they're willing to stake their house and their livelihood on the line and go build something themselves, then go for it, man. Shake their hand, wish them luck. So there's a lot of opportunity out there to be had.
And if you were to, so we'll use you as a specific example. I think this is probably the best example this is the best example that we could use for a trajectory of field service technician up to president. If you were, let's say you are, the age really doesn't matter, because you can pick up at any time, whether you're 18 and you don't want to go to school, but you need a job, whether you just got out of college and you're realizing you don't want to do anything you studied for and you're 22, 23, 24, whether you got out of whatever and you're 30 and you're looking to make a career change, and the numbers could go on. But what would be the steps to fast track in, I wouldn't want to fast track any role too much, because I'll let you explain it, but I'm sure you learn so much about each aspect of the business coming up. But what would that look like to go from field tech to president, and what would the time frame be if you were busting your ass? Also, what would the, you don't have to share too much, but what is the compensation, lifestyle, remote work, whatever, what does that look like from the beginning to where you are now?
Yeah, I'll try to set reasonable expectations, and I only have my experiences and those around me I've seen succeed. But
Mhm.
I actually went to tech school, ended up getting a degree in diesel technology. So I left that, got a job working on heavy equipment, eventually landed at Caterpillar and did industrial power generation.
I didn't know
Uh,
that. Did we talk
yeah,
about this?
maybe I don't know. I mean, so who knows? I may have glanced
Yeah.
over, it. But yeah, I have a degree in diesel technologies, which is Wyotech's diesel program, more or less,
Mhm.
and loved it, man. It was a great job. I was a young journeyman, and quickly realized that the lifestyle and personal goals I had were not in alignment with that income. And
Mhm.
so I had a couple buddies um, and peers of mine that were pipe fitter plumbers. They were complaining about their 5 year $19 raise that they got.
Mhm.
And I'm like, whoa, hold on, time out here, man. I make $24 an hour. What do you mean
You just got an
$19
$18.
raise?
Yeah.
So it took me a year of calling around and trying to get in at a shop that they had recommended, and eventually got on with a smaller union local shop. Got the opportunity, was afforded an opportunity to go there. Went there. The very first day I started there, we got bought out by IES.
Oh,
So
good.
literally,
Yeah.
my first day in the trade was welcome to the team. You have new ownership. Good luck.
Okay.
And that was a pretty, I took a pay cut
Mhm.
to come here and kind of betting on the future.
Mhm.
And obviously it's paid off, but I was willing to invest in myself, start over a whole new trade, a whole new career. I had some mechanical aptitude and skill sets that were applicable, but went from a journeyman that was very competent and capable to the green low man on the totem pole.
Mhm.
And so got given that opportunity. Was at IES. Did about 2.5 years, almost
Mhm.
3 years in the field.
Wait, I'm gonna actually. So I'm gonna pause you there. We're gonna pick right back up. But I want to go. I want to get to what was that breaking point when you realized that your compensation wasn't going to keep up with your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Was there a moment when you recognized that and then started looking to your friends for what they're doing, or was it your friends saying, dude, we just got a $19 an hour raise, and
Yeah.
you're like, fuck, this isn't working for me? So what was that moment like?
Yeah, probably a little bit of both. I was working on a very large, some of the biggest, baddest Caterpillar drivetrains out there. Like I said, I really loved the job. I had a passion for the job.
Mm-hmm.
Lot to learn. By no means was I the greatest at it, but really enjoyed my coworkers, etc. I had some buddies, the friends mentioned that went out bought new Harleys
Mm-hmm.
and bought their first house, and I'm like, man, how are you guys affording this? I got Harleys and dirt bikes and this and that, but I got $600 a month payments I'm barely making.
Right.
That type of stuff, and so somehow we got talking, and like I said, well, what do you make? Well, what do you make?
Yeah.
And I was really blown away. They were surprised that that's quote unquote all I made,
Mm-hmm.
and that they had known me well enough. I'm mechanically inclined, and they're like, you could totally do this job, man. You're probably gonna not make what you make now, but you could do it if you try hard enough. We'll get you hooked up. So, like I said, even with a warm intro, I got introduced to 3 shops. Um, I think I got turned down from the first one in 3 months, the second one in 6 months. Ironically, one of the shops I got turned on to was IES,
Mm-hmm.
and I got turned down. I basically got told, hey, we appreciate your interest. You probably want more money than we're willing to pay, and we're really not looking right now. And I continued on my quest, right? And finally got introduced to the third shop. Again, our first day I started with them. We got bought by IES. So
Yeah.
uh,
What do you think it was that they turned you down? Because if I'm thinking back on it, or if I'm
yeah.
thinking about what you're experiencing now and what I'm
Hmm.
seeing now from the workforce, where
Yeah.
it's rare for someone who actually
Yeah.
shows up and wants to be there. What do you think it was that you didn't get the job? I'm very surprised by that.
Yeah, I don't know. I could only project. I think I was probably, um, the question. I ask a very specific question when I interview someone,
Hmm.
right? And so, what's a wage that you would feel comfortable at coming to work at IES, that is not of negative impact to your lifestyle, right? Because well, what do you want to make is such a subjective question, right? What do you want to make? $1 million a year? Well, everyone wants to make that, right? If you ask that one question and based an offer off that one question, I think it's short sighted,
Hmm.
right? What do you want to make? Because if I see aptitude and drive and potential, I'll pay for those behaviors, even though the skill sets don't exist yet,
Hmm.
right? And so I find that a lot of people, even in today's market, shortchange themselves. We typically offer more than what someone asks for,
Hmm.
um, and that's really I want them to come here, feel good, feel like they got a better deal. Than don't shortchange yourself and fire sale and all take minimum wage. No, I'm not looking for a deal. I'm looking for a long-term investment and a teammate that I get to work with and go kick butt in the market for the
Hmm.
next 20, 30 years. Um, and I have to tell candidates that because oftentimes I'll have a number jobs listed at $100,000 earning potential. Well, what would you like to make? $55,000.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about this. So
Yeah.
I would, in hindsight, I would say that I probably was asking for what I was currently making,
Hmm.
and if the question would have been asked that, well, this is an investment. What are you willing to come here to work for with an opportunity to make that?
Yeah.
Um, I think that conversation would have probably had a little more legs
I
to it.
agree. Yeah.
And ultimately the shop I went to um, I had to take a technical kind of test and a hands-on interview,
Hmm.
um, and showed up prepared on time, communicated throughout, etc. But it took a year. They at that time I got into the trade in 2008,
Okay.
so timing wise, the
Right.
market was doing some interesting things,
Yeah.
and that may have had something to do with it as well. But yeah, it took a year. The gentleman I was calling basically got tired of me calling him and said, "Look, buddy, I know you're hungry. Thank you for communicating. Please don't call me again until we have 105-degree weather for 7 days straight." No problem. I understand absolutely. Probably a month later, we had 3 days of 100 plus,
Hmm.
and I called him and said, "Hey, I'm not going to stop calling. I know I can do this. I want to do this. I know it's 3 days. I heard you, but I'm ready. When can we do this?" And I think 2 weeks later, I probably started with him. So um,
Who 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 instilled or who put that bug in your ear to continue to follow up? Because that's not a common trait.
yeah, I don't think anyone honestly put the bug in my ear. I think it was just the realization of if I want this, I need to make this happen, and the personal responsibility was that um, you don't just get a random phone call. It's kind of the sticky wheel squeaky wheel gets
Squeaky wheel.
greased, right?
Yeah.
Where this guy knows who I am.
Hmm.
Um, there is an opportunity in the future under a certain circumstance, and so I'm going to make sure to stay relevant at the front of his mind. That if and when something changes, all right, at very least I'll give this guy a call back so he stops calling me, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so I think that just that persistence has had helped me out in that opportunity. And that's half of what we do is communicate. That's something I would acknowledge as I don't think I've ever been the most talented person in the room, but I'm pretty persistent. There was always way better mechanics or better salespeople, um, and what I lacked in that talent, I think, I had recognized early on that it just perseverance, persistence, and the willing to learn, and acknowledge that I was not the best at X, Y, or Z, and to really focus on who was the best and try to be a student of them. I can't sell like you know Mike sold
Hmm.
or Bob sold or whoever, but I could pay attention to how they sold and what was leading to success and try to craft and have dialogue and make that my own. So, um, and I think I still carry that even in my current role and as a president. And there's some pretty good readings out there by a guy named Ray Dalio. And yeah, you ever talked about him? I don't know if we've talked about him, honestly. There you go. That's it. Yeah.
If you can't see Ray,
How fun. Did
I've
I
got
tell you about him? Or
no. I just have the book. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Right.
I have a journal around here too. I don't know if you have to take a quick pause. Well, not pause. We're going to talk through this.
Yeah.
But this is. I don't know if you're. Let me see if I can pull this out. This was a gift. I have not opened this up yet, but a guided journal by Ray Dalio. Do you have this too?
I do not. I'm aware of it because I
know how it is.
Yeah, yeah. Please do. But I mean, the principal is a very successful individual, built some immense wealth in the stock market, and not only did he build wealth, but he squandered it, failed miserably in the 80s, lost everything, then had to attempt to rebuild it. Mm-hmm. And to kind of boil it down, he's surrounded himself with a bunch of people that are smarter than him.
Yeah.
That feel comfortable and confident in disagreeing with him.
Yeah.
And the strength of the team and the decision making is in the collective and not an individual. Mm-hmm. And those principles, ironically, were kind of just how I have managed in the past. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily think I was taught that, but after I kind of had saw some short blurbs on probably LinkedIn or something from Ray, I then went and read and was just kind of taken back by like, wow, this is very similar to how I feel a well-run company should be run, mm-hmm. and how a manager should manage and how a team should function. So yeah, what a trip, man. Yeah, you're right in the middle of reading up on it yourself. Yeah. So great read.
Yes, I'm probably a third of the way through, so I'm sure there's a ton. Well, I know there's a ton more, but I would like to say that I instinctively felt this way, but I'm probably full of shit. It's easy to surround yourself with yes men or yes people. And the smart thing is to surround yourself with people that are intelligent and experienced and whose opinion you trust, and that will also say, hey, Jason, just got to throw this out there. I disagree. Oh, wow, thank God. Like, this is what I'm paying you for. Yeah. I'm not paying for you to agree with me. I'm paying for you to help me see my shortcomings. Thank you. Finally, you spoke up. So yeah, it is nothing. I wouldn't say it's reinventing the wheel, but it's something that's so eye-opening that I think I've shied away from as well. Well,
and that's the deal. I mean, I've been very fortunate to have a team that I get to work with on a day-to-day basis that is comfortable raising a hand and saying, hey, this works okay, but there's a better way, or what about this way? I'm not the one having to sell every job, dispatch every job, go fix every unit, right? So I tend to be pretty keen. I think that in my journey, coming from the field into sales, into a superintendent, operations, et cetera, that, I know enough to be dangerous. I know enough to call BS, but I don't know everything. Mm-hmm. And furthermore, I sold 10 years ago. The market's significantly different, Mm-hmm. So social, LinkedIn was, I don't even know if it was a thing 10 years ago, right?
Yeah. It was out there. I wasn't using it.
Yeah. I don't think I was, so social media selling, et cetera. So, it evolves, it changes. And I try to listen for opportunities when I hear disagreement or rumblings to say, well, hold on, time out, your body language, or you just mumbled. What do you got for me? Mm-hmm. What am I missing here? Is there a better way? Let's talk about that.
Right.
Because, I found that if I could make someone's job more or less as easy as I possibly can, overcome any and all obstacles that they feel they're facing, and then have a fun environment to work. If someone comes to work, has fun, feels supported, listened to, and likes what they do, they tend to do a very good job. Mm-hmm. And that's really what we're in the business for, is taking care of our customers' needs in a high quality fashion. So, that's, to me, not rocket science. Mm-hmm. And when I look back on leaders that I've worked for in the past that I really appreciated or enjoyed working for, they ran very similarly. As well, what do you think? What do you agree? Do you disagree? It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I just mimicked the behaviors that I appreciated and enjoyed, and shied away from some of the behaviors and managers I didn't care for.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not perfect.
Dude, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Who goes and who goes and tries to spend the most time with the manager or leader that makes them feel like shit or insecure or whatever? I hide from those people as much as possible. Yeah. That's horrible. Ian, I don't want to cut you off here. I'm sure you do something like this, and I haven't mentioned this. So if you're not doing it, and we haven't talked about this before, and for anyone else that's in leadership, a really good question that can open up, and this is similar to Ray Dalio looking for positive disagreement, if you will, or looking for a different take. I don't know, do you ever check with your team, anybody, anywhere? This is just because of me. This is usually more sales specific because your salespeople, when they're making calls, when they're doing outreach, whatever that is, the biggest thing that can get in the way of someone being successful is conviction or belief in the product. Do you ever check in from a leadership perspective and ask anonymously, however they want to do it, whether it's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, what has made you feel less positive, or has anything made you question our products, our service, or our company? And then when you get that feedback, fix it. Assuming it's a realistic thing that can be, not something that's petty, but something real, and fix it, and then go back again. Okay, in the last 60 days, the last 30 days, has anything happened that makes you feel less secure about your job, less secure about this, less, like I said, convicted to go out and sell this? But do you ever do those check-ins?
Yeah, I do. I class, with my leadership team. You'll hear, they would tell you, I'll talk about influencers. I'm not talking Instagram. You have managers, you have supervisors. I think there's distinct differences between those. And then you have influencers. And so some of the most important people within an organization, I think, can be overlooked. And they're influencers, right? It may not be the foreman, but it's the senior tech that could be a foreman if he wanted. He doesn't. All the guys go to for feedback or insight or help and that type of stuff. And I tend to like to solicit them because there's no stake in the game, right? They're not tied to an outcome other than their own. And check in. Hey, how are things? I know we just changed our GPS system, or the new vans showed up. What do you think of the new vans? And it's kind of the canary in the coal mine, right? They'll tend to be a little more open, I think, with feedback, which is what I want, right? I don't want to be told, oh, everything. I mean, yesterday I had a very talented young apprentice, not a manager, not anything. Went out, got a new van. I went out to the new van and said, what do you think? Well, it's pretty good, but, and then he, I don't want to sound ungrateful. No, what's your but, right? Well, the seating position's not great. It feels like it's a little underpowered. I don't like the drawers or whatever. Okay, that's good feedback. We can change that. Unfortunately, I can't get a transit van to save my life right now, so the GMC is what we get. But the rest of it, we could accommodate, right? So, I think, again, I think that's important to be open to hearing what needs to change, because there's no shortage of opportunity day in and day out of things that we can critique to either take care of our internal customers, which is the employees, and ultimately our external customer, whom's paying the bill.
For sure. Yeah.
So I seek that feedback quite often. That's
tremendous. And in a world, in a globe that is ever changing by the minute, by the second, I'm a huge believer in, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But we do need to do the maintenance, or we do need to do the check-ins to see where it's broken, or if maybe what was once not broken is now not performing to the level of the competition or expectations, or I mean, you could look at pay, $15 an hour 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was like, oh, okay, yeah, I could deal with that. Where I think the minimum wage, don't quote me on this, but I think the minimum wage, I saw it somewhere in California, is like $25 an hour now, something like
Oh,
that.
I thought we were about 15, but I
I think
honestly,
it's
I don't
Southern
know.
California, but I'm not
Okay.
positive. I'm not
Yeah.
positive.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen, it's been all over social media, but the new um, pay increase at UPS. Have you seen this?
Oh, I've heard about it, but not in detail.
170
Okay.
UPS driver,
Yeah.
170
Is the minimum?
is, so I think that I don't want to speak to this and be
Yeah.
incorrect, but I think that if you are a full-time
Hmm.
UPS driver, I
Yeah.
think that's the
Yeah.
expectations.
Good for them.
Me, a buddy of mine, I think we were 18, went to go apply for like a temporary, I think it was around Christmas, a temporary UPS job. And so let's say that was 2005, 2006, something in that realm. And I remember then thinking, I think we paid $35 an hour, so call it 70 grand a year. And
Yeah.
this is, call it 18 years ago. And then I was thinking like, holy shit. And it's funny because thinking that like 70 grand, could you imagine what our lives would
Yeah.
be like? And then,
Yeah.
looking back, like, okay, that's not, that's not what I once thought it was. But
Yeah.
yeah, 70 to 170, that's a pretty big jump over 18 years.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's and then I probably sound a little out of touch not knowing minimum wage, but our minimum wages paid are significantly over minimum. Even some of our entry level, pre-apprentice, tradesman level, which are kind of your very entry level green position, is a percentage of journeyman.
Mhm.
And again, we're talking $30-$40 entry level pay per hour for a very green, non-skilled per se position. So
No, that's really good.
yeah,
That's really good, and especially this is really good pay for a company that is invested in you being successful.
Mhm.
It's an apprenticeship. They're
Yeah.
not out here to dick you around. Excuse my
Yeah.
like, well, it doesn't matter. They're not out here to dick you around.
Mhm.
Like they're looking to help you grow. So if they're willing to
Yeah.
invest this on the front end, what does it look like 5 years down the road? What does it look like 10 years down the road? And
Yeah.
I'm going to use this somewhat just because this has come up so many times that I think this is a really good way to utilize some changes that are going on and some unseen or unnoticed opportunities. But maybe we'll make this the trades promotional podcast. So
Yeah.
if you come in, you jump in, you come in as a tech. What does your path look like? So you went away from Caterpillar, you get the job, you're working. Where do we go from there, and what are the time frames? And give us the journey from there to now.
Yeah, there's kind of two sides of the business, more or less. You have a service, which is repair, fix, maintenance, maintain existing infrastructure, and then you kind of have a construction side of the business, whether it be ground up construction, new construction, or remove replacement of existing infrastructure on existing sites, etc. So, it's kind of they're distinctly different from each other. Service, more or less, eventually you're going to be a one-man band. You have quite a bit of flexibility in schedule, etc. You're kind of managing yourself as long as you're meeting your customers' expectations. Life is good. And then you have kind of the construction side of the business, which can offer a lot of stability. 8 to 5, you're on a job site with 5, 10, 20, 100 other co-workers doing a scope of work. And a little more of a team environment, and some people love that and love to build things, and some people tend to gravitate towards repairing things. But either of those, you're probably a couple years in an entry level position before your employer is going to find and feel comfortable, confident of putting you in an indentured apprenticeship program, and then that's a 5-year path. And then once you journey out, if it's a collective bargain, union type gig, typically you're going to have the potential and freedom of movement. Once you get that journeyman card, you could go anywhere in the country and work. We've had employees. I've seen employees that, they're going to bounce around. They love traveling. They're going to come to California for a couple years, work, and then hey, Idaho sounds great. I want to hit the hunting season for X, Y, and Z. I'm going to go up there for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And so, usually towards the end of that, they're going to have an idea if they would like to progress out of the field of what interests them, sales, operations, project management, that type of stuff. So, and I would advise only just to state what makes you, what interests you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let it be known that, hey, I have interest in X. I was fortunate enough, like I said, our general manager at the time thought that I would be good in sales, had approached me and said, hey, you're doing great. Customer service is great. What do you want to do when you grow up, per se, right? Now, well, I am growing up. Now, long term, what do you want to do? And we got talking, and sales was interesting to me, but not, I wouldn't say my passion. My interest was to become a service manager. That was my end game. I thought that my best path would have been journeyman to a foreman to a service manager. And he had agreed with that, but also advised that sales would probably be a faster path for me to get there, and that I needed to learn a little more about the business. Technical is technical, but there's much more to the business than turning the wrench per se. And so, I was going through some things in life, like we talked about, kind of decisions I was making probably were not the best.
Mm-hmm.
And he had enough of an interest in me to kind of grab me by the ear and pull me aside and say, hey, what's going on with you? There seems to be a change. Pull your head out of your rear. You're not living up to your potential. And that would really caught my attention because, I thought I could be a service manager one day, but to hear someone that you really respected and admired in the trade, sit you down and say, hey, knucklehead, you're blowing it. And you're letting me down because I'm seeing all this talent and what I see as potential just pissing down the drain, right? That really got me thinking pretty quick. And so,
what was it? What was it that changed your performance? What was it that he noticed?
All sorts of stuff. Attendance. I mean, just showing up to work with a black eye is not a good look, especially when you're facing a customer, right? It's like, hey, either get really good at fist fighting or pull your head out of your butt.
Yeah.
And I sucked at fist fighting, so that's just what it was, And what are you doing here, man? I know you got all this extracurricular stuff going on. You're young and having fun and making good money, but to what end? And if you keep it up, not only are you probably not going to progress in your career, you may digress, right? So you need to make some decisions. And I just think that the interest taken in me, it's kind of one of those moments where it's like, man, I'm surrounded by people that see the potential in me that I'm having a hard time seeing myself. And it really kind of caught me off guard that it was other people cared about my future more than I think at the moment I cared.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really what kind of woke me up to like, wow, what I'm doing today and who I'm hanging out with and what I'm doing, after work and on weekends, and really sets the tone or could set the tone and impact my future. Right. And
it's circles.
It is, right. Your
influence,
your circle of influence, right.
Yeah.
Your top. And so, when you step back and you look at that, and then I looked at who I wanted to be or who I thought I could be, right, that there was some pretty significant misalignment. Mm-hmm. And, I don't think there's really any secret to success. I think that when I started to focus on investing time into skill sets or disciplines in the career and trade that I wanted to eventually get into, that all of a sudden success found me. Mm-hmm. That's not a coincidence, right? It's just kind of the ROI of, hey, you know what? Instead of going out and partying and riding my motorcycle all weekend with my buddies, and coming into work Monday with a hangover, right? Hey, why don't I go work some overtime, even if it's for free, with our best mechanics, so I can go learn how to tear down a piece of equipment or what have you, mm-hmm. And just spend that time in a proactive, productive, mode. paid back in dividends, and quite quickly, to be honest. I mean, once you start to see that effort being rewarded by your peers and your coworkers and your boss, it became pretty easy to like cut the shenanigans,
Yeah.
right? Um, and then just focus on really some proactive, productive things in life.
So I keep jumping into pause on certain things that I think are really important. And you mentioned once you start to see the ROI, once you start to see that you're cleaning up things in your personal life, you saw it transfer over to your professional life. For the listener, for someone who's tried something and then given up pretty quickly, this is just like this is so cliche. You hear it repeatedly, but there's nothing more true. And that's going to be trust in the process, because you're not going to see the results right away. Whether you're trying to lose weight, whether you're trying to speak a new language, pick up a new skill, you're probably going to feel worse about yourself. I'm not even going to say probably. You are. You're going to stumble. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to think it's a waste of time. And it could be, let's say you're on a weight loss plan. You might go for 5 to 6 weeks before you even see anything change. And then once you see that little glimmer of light, that's where the ROI, like what Jason's talking about, it's like, oh shit, I'm doing the right things. I'm doubling down. But for anyone who's given it a shot, anyone who says, I'm going to quit smoking cigarettes or whatever, and they did it for a week, it wasn't worth it, I had headaches, keep fucking pushing. Just keep it pushing. You have to trust in the process. And you know what? Give it 2 years. If you haven't noticed anything, then maybe it's not for you. But definitely, whatever you think it's going to take, we're going to use my rule of 3 right now. If you think it's going to take you a week to get good at something, times it by 3, maybe 4. If you think cutting the late nights out with your friends is going to make you feel better at work, and it's the first week you want to go out again, give it 3 or 4, whatever that is. So jumping back to you, but I had to touch on that.
No, I think we are predisposed to focus on what is not versus what is, right? And so it does take time. I talk in pretty grand scales with my team on a regular basis that we'll take 1,500 to 2,000 service calls in a month, and I'll have a salesperson in my office miffed because we didn't meet a customer's expectation. And I agree, that's unacceptable. That's one complaint in 2,000 at bats.
Yeah,
right?
That's pretty damn good.
And are there others? I'm sure there are, right? But in the grand scheme of things, like we could focus and just dwell on this one mess up, or we could celebrate that we're 99.9% effective, and then take the opportunity to work on the one, right?
Absolutely.
So again, it's the small things. I think we tend to just stay so fixated on the end goal without realizing that there's 1,000 steps to get to that end goal, right? And so, you quit smoking. Hey, I had 3 smokes today instead of a pack. Hey, that's 17 less cigarettes that I've had, right?
Right.
As opposed to, man,
it's blown. I'm not good at this. I'm jumping right back in.
Right, because it's a step in the right direction, and it does take time. And I think that with consistency, when people around you see the continued perseverance and effort, that they're willing to invest, they're willing to support, they're willing to cheer you on. And when you can find that culture, regardless of what you're doing or your friend group or whatever, that's when you've got a recipe to succeed, right? And I got a lot of really dumb sayings, but the grass is yellow on both sides of the fence. It's just the cows you hang out with.
For sure.
So go find a group of cows that you enjoy spending time with, that you want to support. They'll support you, and life will be pretty good.
I like that. I like that a lot. I'm going to use that. Okay. I'm just going to touch on this one more time. This is of tremendous value for the 18-year-old Derek, the 25-year-old Derek, shit, the 30-year-old Derek. So hopefully it'll affect somebody out there. But when we're talking about the extracurricular activities, the circles, the habits, whatever, I just saw something, and it was with Muhammad Ali. and this interviewer asked, what is the central focus? And I'm going to butcher this a little bit, but what's the central focus of your training? Mm-hmm. Is it running? Is it sparring, strength training? Like what is it that it's the hardest or most focal point of your success? And he looks at the dude and he goes, the hardest thing that I have to do is avoid the nightclubs, avoid the parties, not go out and eat unhealthy, make sure I'm in bed at 9 p.m. and I'm alone. Yeah. That's the hardest thing. And when you remove, it's like, and this is me being just like soapbox shit. I've got my own, I'll eat candy, I eat bad food. Like I definitely have my cheat days. Like I'm not saying that I'm better than this, but when you look at anything from a work perspective, life perspective, there almost always when there's a problem, the solution is so simple, but we're so used to it that we don't look at removing this very comfortable item as being the next steps to success. Like, oh man, I hate, like for me, I get up at 5 almost every day. My first meeting is at 6. And I would have thought, rewinding back, this is impossible. I'm never going to do that. I actually embrace it now because I get time on my own in the mornings. But when I talk to someone that's like, I can never wake up that early. Oh, I just feel so shitty in the night. It's like, well, what time do you go to bed? Oh, you go to bed at 2 in the morning every night. Well, no fucking shit. You can't get up early. Like you have to set a bedtime alarm. You just never feel good until about noon. Well, what are you putting in your body? I have about 2 Red Bulls before 10 a.m. Well, dude, no, you're fucking tweaking out, at work. And it's like these little, we want to like, oh, let me work harder. Let me stay later in the office. Let me make an extra cold call, which all of those are good. But let's look at the simple shit that we can remove that will make every other cold call you made that much better. Because you sound like a human, not like you're cracked out on Red Bull. You sound like you slept the night before. You sound like you know what you're talking about because you studied the product. Whatever it is, these fixes are usually so simple, and we look for these wild solutions that are expensive, damaging, costly, not just from a monetary perspective, but just costly to our lifestyle. And anyway, that's my little rant.
And I would just say this, Derek. I think that oftentimes we look for the easy button. Yeah. Right. And sometimes there's just no easy solution. It is hard work, dedication, blocking, tackling, very basic, repetitive things that create behaviors that can lead to success. Yeah. And that's not fun. It's not fun to have to get up at 5 a.m. every day. Right. But I think that behavior has led to success for you, right? I would only forecast. And so that it then becomes easy to repeat that behavior. And then the thing I would say is we're surrounded by people that there's probably someone that you work with now or have worked with that you think back and think, man, if one day I could be that guy, that guy's the best sales guy or gal, or they're the best mechanic or whatever that is. Take them to lunch. It's a $40 cost and you're eating, right? Take them to lunch and say, hey man, or woman, whoever. Yeah. I want to get to where you're at. How do I get there? Right. And it's painful. So the feedback you'll get sometimes hurts. Yeah. Well, and right, especially if you're friendly with them. Well, why don't we start with showing up at work, combing your hair, tucking your shirt in, right? And blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, what do you mean? That's a problem. Well, you didn't brush your teeth, you didn't comb your hair, and you were late the last week. Whatever that is, right? It's hard, right? But it's appreciated in hindsight. That's a hard conversation to have. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
What do they say? Hard conversations, easy life. Easy conversations, hard life. Or avoiding the hard conversations. Yeah. No. What you don't. The disgusting cold medicine that's hard to swallow is usually the one that works, as opposed to the bubble gum kids flavor. Yeah. I'm taking the heavy hard pill every time, if allowed. That's my MO. And using this example, because I don't want to screw this up with time. So for that field service tech, for that person that's looking to make a career change and using you as the mentor for this, what are the next steps? You went from field service tech, you've got a sales opportunity. What are the steps that, and maybe you didn't ever, maybe you would have done things a little differently, but what would you recommend for someone that wants to follow your footsteps or even follow some of them to get to a certain level and maybe that's where they're happy?
Yeah, I would. So, I left the field, had opportunity to go into sales. I took a pay cut.
Mm-hmm.
I tell this story oftentimes. I took a significant pay cut. Now, the comp plan was built in such that if I was successful, I could make more.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, I've always appreciated, this will sound probably a little harsh, but I haven't been I haven't been given anything in life. Right. I wasn't given a position because people liked me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I was given an opportunity to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm appreciative of, because I've never any job any promotion, any new role I took, I would have been fired if I failed. I knew that. It was discussed that, hey, you're doing pretty good in sales now. You're making good money in sales. We can put you in this ops role, but if things don't get better and you don't have an impact, your sales job is fulfilled. You're not going back to sales,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I took a pay cut to go into management, right? And now the goal is to excel and succeed, and eventually, you make some more money, and that's great. But I focus on what I have control on, right? And so I go into sales. I focused on being the best salesperson I could be. I was surrounded by very competent, talented people, and they noticed. I feel that they had noticed my efforts and my persistence, and thus they invested in me. And I asked a lot of questions, and I shut up. Me telling them what I think was 6 months in the sales realm and their career, 20-year-old or 20 years of sales experience, really wasn't my place, right? I could disagree. I could tell them I disagree and ask some questions, but I was there to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I learned to the best of my ability. Like I said, had some success, enough success to identify issues where operations was not what I had hoped, and I felt let down, and understood that impacted my pay. And again, felt comfortable enough to speak up to my management team that supervised me and said, hey, this is great and we're doing a pretty good job, but what if it looked like this?
Mm-hmm.
What if we did it differently? And what if, and kind of challenged them to, this is not good enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
The customers say it's not good enough. I'm not making as much money as I think I could make, what if? And so about 3 years in sales, I was afforded the opportunity of kind of a service manager, superintendent role. Again, took a pay cut, and took that role head on, with a lot of responsibility. And that's probably where I probably learned the most about the business, the trade industry, people management, all that good stuff. Was in that role. It's probably the most frustrating position I've ever had, as well as one of the most rewarding positions as well. I think I was, I'm young now, but service management, I think I was 28, 29 years old, managing.
Oh, damn.
Managing about a $9 million business. Everyone knew me. That was good. That also sucked because, I'm trying to tell the guys that I looked up to in the field what to do.
Yeah.
Right. And I quickly learned that I couldn't tell them what to do.
Yeah.
I had to have their buy-in. They had to agree with what needed to be done. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a very trying time of trying to go from a peer to a supervisor. Right. That's got its own baggage.
Yeah. A ton of baggage.
Yeah.
You said everyone knew you. So I can only imagine for the, call it 50-year-old guy that's watching this 28, 29-year-old that they watched come up the ranks, that they watched show up with a black eye, that they watched do whatever. And now it's like, well, and I've had this experience, well, you have earned the position and well, you absolutely should be there. that person that knows you from being 23, 24, you're always going to be the 23 or 24
Yes.
year old Jason to them.
Oh, yeah.
And so they're like, what
100%.
the fuck are you doing? Tell me what
Yeah.
to do. Like, I
Well,
remember when you walked in here.
and here's the beauty of it is, hey guys, hey, Mr. 50-year-old, we both know, I don't know what needs to be done. The beauty is I'm the one that's got to get it done. You like me. We know each other. We trust each other. What needs to be done, and how can you help me accomplish that, right? And be patient with me, right? This isn't a snap of the fingers and voila, hey, everyone gets their way, everyone's happy in a month. I mean, this is going to take some years, guys. We got some work to get done, again, it's just the small stuff, right? You have to celebrate the small wins, and you have to learn from the small losses. And they come fast and furious. As fast as you're high-fiving, hey, we did a good job and we're doing better here, you're going to get kicked in the teeth and holy cow, how did we mess that up, right? That's kind of how I had gone from sales into service management, again, very thankful for the opportunity to take that challenge on. I think, and bet on myself. That's pretty much it.
Which unfortunately, fortunately for you, but unfortunately, I would say the majority wouldn't take that opportunity. And when you're saying pay cuts, I want to make sure the listener understands, and you can clarify this if I'm wrong. A pay cut with the opportunity to make more should you be successful. So going from, if you're killing it in sales and you go to a management role, you are taking the ball away from yourself and giving everyone else a ball. So your initial pay, what you were doing as a sole contributor, that goes away, and it's risky. You have to bet on yourself that you're going to adapt.
I'll give you numbers. I mean, in each of those examples, I took a $20,000 pay cut. Now, if I succeeded with bonuses and this and that and the other, I could make more. But if I didn't, then I made less, right? I mean, when I changed industries altogether, I sold a couple dirt bikes I had, right, in order to afford that opportunity. Because I took a pay cut, right? Couldn't make the
to
payment.
Create some runway.
Yeah, right. Ultimately, from there into sales again, took a pay cut, sold my Harley, right? had to get rid of the payment, but I knew I didn't need that stress. I could have probably swung it, but let's focus on work and not worry about payments, right? And then into management again, sold whatever toy. I think it was I had 2 trucks at the time, building some type of four-wheel rig, and now getting rid of that, right? And so, that's what I've found is that there's always opportunity, right? You don't have to take the opportunity, and it's uncomfortable. I could have stayed doing what I was doing, stayed in my lane, been very comfortable. It's very easy to calculate what I could make. I had a couple of years. I knew in sales I made X dollars. I could work a little harder, make more, or I could keep cruising and make good money. But ultimately, I had a passion for a better mousetrap, if that makes sense, and understood that the impact of getting some things fixed up and some slight adjustments here and there could have had a much greater impact to my peers, the other salespeople, getting hours for the team, selling more work because our product is better at that point in time. That was more interesting to me than selling. If that makes sense. So,
it absolutely does make sense. So if you feel comfortable with this, you can give a range from, you can give an industry range, or you can talk about IES. It's up to you. But so you mentioned, I'm not sure if you said tech or journeyman, but you said in the Bay Area, there's some maybe more senior techs that are approaching, did you say like 102 an hour?
104.60 an hour, I think, is what the foremans make out there. Yeah.
So 104 an hour is if you are out in the field. Once you have experience, that's an opportunity. What about if you feel comfortable? What does a top salesperson make?
Man, we've had salespeople make well into the hundreds. We historically have done a lot of K through 12 energy sales type stuff, where we've had paydays in upwards of $1 million for individuals selling tens of millions of dollars worth of work. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the blue collar trades out there where you really can make a killer living, very comfortable living. Um, Go to work, have fun, use your hands. You don't have to have a college degree. Yeah, ironically, I think some of our top salespeople are not per se educated. They don't have masters in sales excellence or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, not necessary.
Yeah, not
Experience is more, life experience is more valuable than a degree, in my
correct.
opinion. Unless you're a
Yeah,
doctor or an attorney. That's
yeah.
what it,
And I think that the common theme in any one of those people that I think back and are the guy or gal, right? Our top sales guy, top tech, my favorite boss, whatever. Their kind of can do, will do attitude is a very common theme
mm-hmm.
throughout them, and their stories, ironically, I would say are pretty similar to my own, where it's very common in my peer group now, and a majority of the presidents I've gotten to meet within my parent company, etc. They were in a truck turning a wrench at one point in time.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they started, in a truck or sweeping a floor in a shop. And you get talking to them, and it's very similar, where it's like, well, the company had a need, I was willing to give it a try, and I just didn't fail, and sometimes there is digression, or I did fail, I was repurposed to do this, and 5 years later I got where I needed to go.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of the stick to itness of put your head down and work. So yeah, I mean, it's a ton of money to be made out there in general in the trades, and a lot of opportunity, in my opinion, for a lot of people.
And if someone specifically wants to come work with you and work for IES, what would how do they get a hold of you?
Man, I don't even know. There we have our website. It's currently under redevelopment, but
Mm-hmm.
they're welcome to reach out. Info at ies-hvac.com. That'd probably be their best outlook or means to get a hold of me. And happy to chat with them, even if it's bounce some questions off non-industry related. I'm again, I think people helping people is a good thing. I was very fortunate to have some people that have been very able and available to help me throughout my career, and so please reach out.
Awesome. So if you do not hear back for some reason, you can always contact me, which is info@riverside.fm. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm looking at something. I'm reading off the web address bar. That is not my email. info@constructingsuccess.fm. If you have any questions for Jason, if you have any questions for me, comments, whatever, if you don't like the shirt I'm wearing, just any feedback, that's what I'm here for. And as I wind this down, I do have a couple more personal questions for you, Jason. So you perfectly segued into this. You said you've had some mentors and some people that helped you and steered you in the right direction. If you were to think back, it could be one, it could be more. Whether it's a coach, whether it's a sales manager, whether it's a family member, if you could thank somebody for helping shape your trajectory, who would that be and why?
Man, I only get one.
No. You could do 5. You could do 10.
Yeah.
My list would be so long. I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah. Man, there's a couple names. There's a gentleman named Ryan Brand. He was my first foreman in this trade. He's the guy that hired me and got me into the mechanical trades. He's got a passion for the trades. Is one of the funnest supervisors I ever had. A gentleman named Jeff Russell was one of my first bosses. He's the guy that moved me up to Sacramento. Great guy to work for, can do, will do. He's the type of guy that's going to lead from the front. Appreciate the heck out of him. And look back and, I don't think I'd be sitting where I am today unless he talked me into moving to Sacramento. Mark Sampaio was the general manager, took me out of my service van, put me into sales. He's the guy that grabbed me by the ear, sat me down and said, "Hey, get your act together, bud."
Oh,
Still
that was
talk to him.
Mark. That was Mark.
Yeah, it
Okay.
was. Yeah, I still talk to him to this day. Talked to him last week, and still welcome any and all feedback, advice. I'll bounce stuff off him and give him a call and say, "Hey, am I overreacting? Am I being a jerk? Am I being soft? What are your thoughts?" Right? Because I trust his input. He's been in the trade a long time, and he's a great guy. Charlie and Stan Butts. Those are the historically the owners of IES that I worked a majority of my career with. Both Charlie and Stan have been very good to me. I've learned a lot of lessons from them. They're very traditional, valued, kind of old school guys that tell it like it is. And as long as you're willing to carry that flag, they'll continue to support you. And very fair and good guys to work for. I guess they do what they say. So those are who come to mind immediately. There's probably 100 more that I'm going to get off this call. Dang, I wish I would have
naturally
said this, but those are kind of the guys that were willing to give me an opportunity, and help support me to be the best version of myself I could be in that moment. And that is appreciated for sure, especially in hindsight.
Well, and please tell Stan I say hello. Is he still enjoying the humidity down in Florida?
He is, yeah. Living the dream, right? So no, he's doing very well. Still calls and gives me a hard time.
Good,
on a regular basis. So.
That's what he's there for. And for anybody that you skipped over, my recommendation for you, and this is just a good thing in general, is as they pop into your head and you think, "Fuck, I should have said something," shoot them a text.
Yeah,
shoot them just a quick voice note.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
They will be most appreciative. I do have 2 more questions for you.
Yeah.
If you've got time. Okay.
Go for it. Yeah.
So everybody's got their shit. We all have good days. We all have bad days. Good days, that's great. I'm not as curious about that.
Yeah.
Bad days in a leadership role, you've got to show up. Bad days, you don't feel like putting your shoes on and doing what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, from a mental perspective, whether it's a physiological thing, what do you do to snap out of it as soon as possible?
Oh, well, we're all human. I wish I could tell you I've mastered this, but I would say this is that we tend to project. Well, let me digress a little bit. I was given the opportunity to run IES as a president late last year. And I would say that one of the biggest things that had caught me off guard is the general awareness, focus, and attention that people pay to what I do, what I say, how I dress, how I look. Like it's kind of funny. You said, well, you got to get up, you got to show up. And if I'm having a bad day and get snippy or snappy, it's noticed, right? And before I know it, 10 people know it because so-and-so said so-and-so. And the reality is that whatever's going on in the grand scheme of things is probably not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And whomever I snip at or got short with probably didn't deserve it, right? Yeah. And so, I try to have a very granular, just because I'm having a bad day doesn't mean others need to have a bad day, right? And I would say that if I catch myself where I just don't have the time or patience or energy, I have to own it. Because to your point, we are human. We do have those moments. We do have bad days. We do lose a job. So-and-so quit. And that's tough. It's a grind. It never stops. No. And so you do, I got to push back from my desk.
Yeah.
Just kind of laugh about it and understand that, hey, we're going to figure it out, and the team is going to figure it out collectively. We'll be okay. And own it. I think that hiding from it, procrastinating, you can kind of sell yourself on a circumstance so that you minimize or mitigate, the responsibility that you may have had. And the good news is now the buck stops with me. There's no one to point a finger at.
Right.
Right. And so that I can't get away from that reality.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it because it is my responsibility. I have 150 families I'm responsible for.
Right.
And I take an immense responsibility to that. So me sulking in the corner, having a bad day, being a little jerk to someone that doesn't deserve it, doesn't work.
Right.
So it's really, all right, we got to figure this out. Again, rally the troops, get the group of trusted advisors and peers together and say, hey, here's the cards we're dealt. Yep, it sucks. Okay, we're done complaining. Now, what's the plan and how are we going to get through this?
Mm-hmm.
And I trust that the 6, 5, 8, 150 of us can make this happen.
Right. Yeah. No, that's good. And I don't know if you, I'm sure you noticed this because this is along the lines of what we were talking about, but when something's not going well, when the shit's about to hit the fan, whatever it is, the higher you get up and being in your role, maybe when you were a field tech, you could, and if we're going to use this problem and imagine it as a big, scary monster, as a field tech, you might be able to actually hide. Like you might be able to hide out long enough that the monster, ravages the town and moves on.
Yeah.
Being in a leadership role, the monster's actually coming for you. And there's no way that he's not going to sniff you out. So the way that, at least for me, I'm sure you're doing this, but knowing that I can't hide from it, and this is the obstacle, this is the scary thing, the best shot that I have, and even if the odds are against me, is to just run up, face it, and hit it as hard as I can right away, because that's going to be my best shot. Yeah. And maybe I lose that scuffle, but at least I got to it early and I'm able to adapt. So that's just something I'm thinking about when trying to dodge shit and being responsible.
Well, there's no perfect shot, right? So no matter what, whether you throw a jab, a right hook, whatever, uppercut, pros and cons to all of them. Right? And whatever happens, you're going to step back, reassess, and you're going to go back into it, right? Yeah. So, so I tend to, make the best educated decision I can based on what we're dealing with. And it's okay to adjust, right? And you'll learn a lot. You'll learn as much or more in the failure than you will in the success oftentimes. And so it's okay to fail, learn from it. Don't do it again. You can't get burned 100 times in a row. Eventually, you got to assess and think, well, maybe I'm doing something wrong. But paralysis by analysis. Right?
Yes.
It usually doesn't bode well. So
never.
Like I said, I try to get the team together, assess, call a clear play, right? Define the box, talk through it, the what ifs, do the best job we can, and proceed. And then you're going to reassess in an hour, a week, a month, a year. That's the beauty of it, right? You can always, the one consistent is change.
Yes.
Right? The only thing in life I can guarantee is change. We do the best we can with what we got.
What was it? Bruce Lee? I think it was Bruce Lee. Be like water. Just be flowing. Just be ready. Be ready for the change. Be ready to adapt. And that's that's actually putting using a really strong defense to be your offense. Like if you're it's great if things go the way we want them to. But knowing that we're probably going to have to hit 5 audibles before we call the play and feeling comfortable with the audibles. That is the difference between being prepared and actually being prepared versus I'm holding on tight.
Yeah. So. Well, another great martial artist, Mike Tyson, has the saying. Everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the effing nose.
Yeah.
And something to that tune. And I mean that's life, right? You have your idea of what you're going to do. Life happens.
Yeah.
You're never going to avoid that. And then you got to get back in there and go for it. So
I think it was I might be butchering this as well, but I think he was talking about someone and saying, I don't care how good he looks hitting a steady bag, put him in the ring and let him get hit in the mouth, and then we'll see what type of fighter he is. Then we'll see how he really hits. And there's nothing truer. Speaking of turnaround story, and this is going to be my goal. Who knows? This is just going to throw this out there. I would love to get Mike Tyson on here. And this is such a lofty goal. He's the epitome of going from the top to the bottom to the top to the bottom. And now I genuinely feel like he is a spiritually evolved, emotionally intelligent. We're talking about the scariest fucking person on the
Yeah.
planet. Like, you could take old school UFC days, like UFC 1. Mike Tyson would have eaten everyone alive.
Oh yeah.
And now he's just this, he's the perfect example of be a savage, be able to take care of people, be able to protect yourself, but operate in a way that no one would know that. And he's just this gentle, the way he speaks, and he's always eating a scary amount of mushrooms, and maybe that's what
Yeah.
keeps him at bay. But he is just like his evolution. He's. I'm glad you said Mike Tyson. I love Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
And my very last question, you don't have to answer this. This is a little deeper, a little bit more personal. But what is a rock bottom moment? What is an adversity? What is a pain that you're grateful to have?
Oh man.
And I might have gone too deep there. Who knows?
Yeah, no. I would just say this, that one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make, that I am truly grateful I made, was leaving IES for a period of time that I did. It was time for me to step away and just really assess what it is I needed in life to once again feel excited and fulfilled in my career. Without that perspective, and without taking that step away and taking a break, I wouldn't have gone to a competitor and worked there. I loved it there. It was great. Stan Butts ultimately reached out, bought IES back, and head shoulder tapped me. And it was probably one of the proudest moments in my life, is getting that phone call saying, "Hey, I think you're the guy. I think you're ready. Are you in or are you out?" And so, it's you never know what's around the corner. I was at a point in my career where I just kind of threw my hands up, and within a year had one of the proudest moments of my life in my career, and got to come back. And 2.5 years later, I can't be more happy with where I am, who I work for, and really the team that I get to work with on a day in and day out basis. So, it happens. It's trials and tribulations of your career. I think it's pretty normal.
Very.
I think it's a good question. But there's, on a daily basis, I'm sure at the end of the day, retrospect, I probably would have done that a little different. So we'll take note. Tomorrow's a new day, and away we go.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the thoughtful response, and thank you for the time. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Yeah. And who knows, maybe we pick this back up. I try to keep them right at 2 hours, and I've got you up until we've got 30 seconds until we're done. So thank you for the time. And you and I will be in touch. So I'll keep you updated on any questions that come in. If ever you want to jump back on, I'd love to have you back. And for the guests, I'm going to say it one more time, or for the, not guests, for the listeners, info@constructingsuccess.fm. Positive, negative, questions, you want to talk shit, whatever, drop me an email, and we will see you the next time. So thank you, and take care.
Thanks for having me.